welcome to the weekend edition of the Nightly News. Ted, I have gone back and listened to you every night this week talking about these critical issues. Unbelievable the way you've dissected these issues, the way you've set both parties up, one side and the other. I don't know that there's ever been a starker contrast between the parties on these critical issues. And this is the weekend edition where we usually talk outdoor stuff, hunting, guns, Second Amendment. I see you have your beautiful bow and arrow in hand. And I want to talk about some of these regulations that impact hunters, impact gun owners. And Ted, I'm sure you saw where Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, who's running for Senate against Ron Johnson in the great state of Wisconsin, wanted to ban certain ammunition, which thank goodness it didn't pass. We saw during the pandemic, Governor Whitmer in your state shut down planting parks. They in Wisconsin, they tried to close hunter education online during the pandemic, but thanks to your effort, my effort, Luke Hilgeman and Hunter Nation, we got hunter education back open in Wisconsin. A very stark difference between the Second Amendment, guns, ammo, hunting, conservation between the Republicans and the Democrats. Ted, how should our listeners be thinking when it comes to the conservation issues, the hunting, the fishing, the trapping, the shooting, issues when it comes to this upcoming election?
Well, there's nothing more fundamental, more instinctual, more pure than the responsibility and the dynamic of hands-on conservation, self-sufficiency, that rugged individual spirit that founded the United States of America in spite of kings and emperors and tyrants around the world. We decided we wouldn't be slaves anymore. And the very premise of that individualism would be self-sufficiency, hunting, fishing, and trapping, that the wildlife belongs to we the people, not the king. And that whole tyrannical episode that only the United States of America daring to experiment in self-government, and we defied the king and we shot his punks. They came to Concord Bridge to take our guns. That spirit of individualism, self-sufficiency, defiance is alive and well in the hunting, fishing, trapping, outdoor families of this great country. And I have a campfire with these great families every weekend, September, October, November. And I hang out with them this morning at the cafe, yesterday at the feed mill, at the sporting goods shop, at the hardware store. It's always talking about the perfection of the annual harvest of God's miraculous renewable resources. Because as you balance the herds and you harvest the surplus, which thrive during the spring and summer after another winter, because winter's coming, and it's called the dead of winter, because if we don't harvest the surplus, all that fine vegetation and habitat that was flourishing in the spring and the summer, it's gone in the winter. So those animals would not have any food or cover if we didn't harvest the surplus. The guitar player has to explain this in 2022. These words have never been spoken in a school in America. No wonder we're graduating the dumbest people in the history of humanity. The point being is that if any demographic embodies and defines conservatism, conservation, the Constitution, self-sufficiency, the dedication, the sacrifices and risks that put us in the asset column for our family, we produce more than we take, our neighborhood, we're vigilant. The hunting season and the hunting families defines conservatism. And here's the heartbreak. We discovered when we started HunterNation.org that in many states, upwards of 50+% of licensed hunters were not registered to vote. And then we wonder why the insanity and the scam and the lie and the anti-nature maniacs of the animal rights movement have infested so many game departments and mitigated the proven sound science of the annual sustained yield harvest. And then our tax dollars go to sharpshooters for damage control because we weren't allowed quality control in harvesting the right amount of wolves, cougars, bears, deer, elk, moose, pronghorn, turkeys, salmon. The American hunting families hold the power in our voting hands to vote for Republicans that respect conservation. The sound science has been established of how many deer, how many elk, how many moose, how many caribou. We know what the productivity rate of these various species are. We know what the habitat will sustain. We know what the winter severity index will cause in attrition. And we harvest and eat the annual renewability. And by the way, 1 and 1 equals 2, and you're supposed to put your socks on before your shoes. I mean, to me, it is so obviously logical that hunting has to take place. And here's the battle cry I was able to establish on the Nightly News, my Real America's Voice, my Spirit of the Wild TV show, the Joe Rogan interview, and tens of thousands of interviews. You know where clean air, soil, and water comes from? Healthy wildlife habitat. You know where healthy wildlife habitat comes from? Balanced herds and the cash, the gazillions of dollars in license fees, permits, and sporting goods, and food, lodging, travel, gas, hotels, beer, ice that hunting families spend every year for conservation officers and conservation departments. Let me reiterate. Clean air, soil, and water is a gift to mankind from the hunting, fishing, and trapping families of America. You're very welcome. If you want healthy air, soil, and water, buy a hunting license, a fishing license, and a trapping license. Catch a fish and shoot a quail. That's how you have healthy habitat that produces healthy air, soil, and water. That's a Republican thing. There are some Democrats, well, I hunt. Yeah, but you vote for things that destroy America because the Democrats are for high crime. The Democrats are for an open border. The Democrats are for the importation of fentanyl. The Democrats are for giving all our military weaponry to the Taliban. So just because you shoot a pheasant doesn't mean you're my buddy. You have to be a Republican or at least a conservative and fight for these conservative values.
Great week, Ted. I think all of our listeners, all of our viewers gained a great insight. And I recommend everyone go to huntthevote.org, sign the pledge, make a plan, and then vote. And Ted, I'll let you go ahead and shoot that arrow. I recommend that you aim for the bullseye. And if you miss, always miss slightly right. Have a great weekend.
And I never miss, and I got a disconnected pump station to prove it, and all the venison a boy could ever want. Happy hunting season, everybody. In the wind, Mark Schmidt is still alive.